What's going on, everybody? It is Chris Aiken from Aftershocks, and just wanted to remind you before we give you this next great interview that you should be subscribed to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. That is the web address. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe. Everything you need to do to catch not only this episode, but everything that we've done in the past. It's all over there on the CMS Podcast Network, as well as great shows from the Classic Metal Show, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me, and of course, Aftershocks TV. So sign up today and you will never be without entertainment again. All right, enough of this. Let me give you the interview you came here to see.
Ready.
Do it.
All right, let's do it. All right, here we go. Let's welcome to another episode of Aftershocks at AfterShocksTV.com on the CMS Podcast Network. And joining us on this episode, we got a tag team effort from Brooklyn's metal power trio, Sanhedrin, guitarist Jeremy Sosville and vocalist bassist Erica Stoltz. Guys, thank you both for coming on today. How you guys doing?
Great.
Cool.
Awesome. Very good, man. Well, first off, I want to say congrats to you guys on your signing now with Brian Slagle and the legendary Metal Blade Records, man. Very cool. Very cool, man. I mean, one of the first labels, obviously, to spearhead the genre back in the early 80s. And, you know, they've been around for almost 40 years, I think, now. So just want you to start off, tell us a little bit about how you wound up connecting with Brian in order to now be rostered on the iconic Metal Blade Records.
You want to field that one, Jer?
I didn't get it because my technology is not working. So
Oh,
I may have
well. So you didn't hear the question this guy just asked?
No, I heard something. I heard the intro to the question and then it died.
Okay. I can repeat it.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay.
How'd we get on Metal Blade, Jeremy?
Yeah, there we
How?
go. Tell you guys, just tell us a bit how you guys wound up connecting with Metal Blade. And
Well, there were a few people that I, at least personally, had spoken to who were very encouraging of what we do. And we're just like, you should, try to see if you can jump up in terms of, the label we were on is Cruz del Sur.
mm-hmm.
And they're awesome, but it's a pretty small operation, and there's going to be a ceiling at some point with them if we continue to grow. Enrico, the boss man there, he has his own, goals with the label, and we just kind of wanted to see if anybody was interested that may have a bigger scale, and to see if that could give us, some new opportunities.
Okay.
So we reached out to a few people who knew a few people, and conversations were had, and here we are. Unbelievably, if you ask me. I'm still quite surprised and humbled by it.
Sure. Just got to pinch yourself. Yeah, no, it's a great great label, obviously, and like I said, congrats. So let's talk a bit about the band's initiation, because you guys are both from such very different backgrounds musically. I mean, both in the hard rock and metal arena, but both different styles and genres you're from it. I mean, Jeremy, obviously you're known from Black Anvil, which is more of a rooted in black metal, and Erica, of course, you're from 90s. You guys were more of like an alternative stoner psychedelic sort of thing. I mean, you guys have your own thing going. Both bands are fantastic. How did this musical union between the three of you and Sanhedrin sort of occur, considering you guys are from such different musical backgrounds?
Oh, the missing piece is Nate. Nate is our drummer, and Nate was a colleague of mine for years on an audio crew at the Opera House at Brooklyn Academy of Music, where we would do sound checks, and he would literally be playing the drums, checking the drums, and I was like, damn, kid, you're a good drummer.
Yeah, he is.
Told him at one point, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing here? You need to be working as a drummer, and then fast forward like 10 years and we're in this band together, and he's my drummer. And Jeremy and Nate had been in a band together prior to either one of them, and
our paths kind of converged, really. then Nate is the common thread. I was playing with Nate for probably 5 years or so, just kind of trying to get something off the ground. And then he would always say, well, maybe sometime we'll have my friend Erica come down. And, that was like quite a while before it actually happened. Then it actually happened. And not long after that, we kind of realized we had more than just a after work project on our hands. We had like a real band that, we wanted to see where that momentum would take us. And so far it's been pleasantly surprising.
Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, let's talk about, the music, in your last record, The Poisoner, which is a great record. And in my opinion, I mean, it definitely has a more of a traditional sort of classic metal bass sound, compared to the first record, A Funeral for the World, which to me sounded a little more, had more of that doomier vibe to it. Is this more classic metal direction? Is that kind of what you guys are, going for now? You got to kind of continue to mix the two of them up, because I mean, both records definitely have elements of both those sounds, but it seems like one, tends to lean in one direction, on each one. So is this sort of where you guys are going now? You're kind of getting away from the doom stuff and going more towards the classic traditional metal stuff?
I don't know that we have a particular direction like that. I think each album kind of develops its own personality. Like the next record kind of keeps elements of those two first albums, but we're also exploring some new territory. And that album will have its own personality. There'll be some of those elements you speak of, but there'll be some new stuff as well.
Okay, cool.
Sure. Now,
Absolutely.
when you went and you spoke with Brian Slagle or whomever at Metal Blade, did you have to share with them the new music that like the demos or whatnot, or did they sign you based on what they had heard in the past?
They were interested based on the first two records and the work we put in. We did quite a bit of touring last year. Well, not this year, obviously. Last year, and so they knew what we were about, but they did ask to hear some demos. So we recorded 6 songs. We sent them most of which will probably be on the next record. All of which was recorded remotely. The songs were written together, but then the pandemic happened, and we had to get kind of creative on as to how we would make a demo actually come to be. So we sent them those songs, and then they probably heard it and realized we weren't gonna write a freeform jazz odyssey album or something. And so that from there we were just talking terms at that point.
Sure. Now when you guys write, I'm always interested in this, and I'm going to go sexist here, I guess, because it always seems that when you have a female fronted band, the female fronting singer ends up having a lot more input. And this is just more my experience from talking to a zillion bands. So Eric, I'll ask you, and Jeremy, feel free to jump in on this as well. Do you take a lot more of that lead as the singer, because there will be so much more emphasis put on you as the singer, being a female singer versus, when you throw another band up there that has a guy, they tend to not get as much attention, negative or positive, on them?
That's a big question. I don't think I do, because the way I see myself as a musician is not as a female, but as a musician. You know what I mean? So the way that we've worked out the work distribution in this band, creatively, is pretty equitable.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have a 3-way split here, kind of like even Steven, don't you, Jer?
Yeah, we usually, any particular song starts typically with one or two of us, coming into the room with something, but it doesn't take long for it to become like a totally collaborative thing. I'll come in with a group of riffs that sound together, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I don't know what Erica's going to hear for a vocal melody, or I'll say, I don't know what Nate's going to hear as a drum beat. There's been times where I hear a drum beat in my head and then I bring it to rehearsal. He plays something totally different. And I'm like, oh shit, that was even better than anything I would have thought of. So yeah, I would say the seed gets planted by one or two of us, but it doesn't take long for it to become, you know, a completely collaborative effort most of the time.
But I also I don't really think of myself necessarily, and that's part of why I like being in three-piece bands, to be honest, because it's really important in a three-piece that everybody's really dynamic. And so me being the lead singer, can only do so much if Jeremy isn't rocking out next to me and Nate isn't doing what he's doing. You know what I mean? So
yeah, there's a big emphasis as individual participants on what can we do, you know, with our roles in the band to make the sound as large as possible with, you know, or as dynamic as possible, with the limitations of, you know, one guitar, one bass, one drummer versus, you know, having a keyboard player and, you know, some guy running around with a flute or something, you know. Like, but I think that the limitations actually spawn creativity, you know, any form of art, really. So
no, I agree. And you know, the reason I was asking my question is not necessarily aimed at you guys doing this as much as everybody else in the industry kind of does this. Whether you pick a band you can go varying genres. You can go Hailstorm. You could go In This Moment. You can go Ginger. You can go all these different bands that are, you know, that have a female front person, and it always ends up. And I could tell you, I've interviewed all three, and they all say, well, we're equal, we're equal, we're equal. And you guys tell me, are they equal, or is the front lady, front person, the front woman, the lead of those bands? I think in every case, it turns out that way. Maybe
you know
it's
what I think about the lead of, and I mean, in a lot of ways, I think it's the intellectual property. So whoever comes up with the song kernels tends, in my mind, to be the lead.
Okay.
And so, you know, and that is, you know, chord progressions and vocal melodies, right? Like that to me is like a kernel of a song.
I think.
Sorry, what, Jer?
I think maybe what we're getting to is maybe how those bands may be viewed publicly by people. Is that
right?
I don't even know. I'm not familiar with those bands, to be honest with you. So
I think a lot of that is dependent on each band. With certain bands, maybe that's the way they want to market themselves or what have you. We've never had that issue. And I think part of it is the three-piece element. Each one of us has very distinct personalities musically within the band that kind of, you know, there's not one thing that overpowers it over another, I don't think.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah.
But I write music, and so does Jeremy. You know what I mean? Like we both are songwriters in the process, I guess. So I wouldn't say that I would be the lead necessarily.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I know you both have backgrounds in other, you know, successful hard rock and metal bands, you know, both great bands. So Eric, I'll start with you. As I mentioned, you know, earlier, obviously, you know, you were part of the whole Bay Area, you know, the power trio, Lost Goat, which, I mean, you were based out of that Mission scene there in the 90s, which I'm not sure if you've been there lately. It's not the same as I'm sure it was when you were there. But you know, you guys had such a unique sound. I always said it was like mutating, you know, Headbangers Ball in 120 minutes together. It was like, you know, you had this metal mixed with this really sort of Pacific, you know, Northwest guitar sound that Eric played. Had that really dirty psychedelic tone, which is really so unique and really cool. I mean, however, I feel like with Sanhedrin, I mean, you're able, I think, to do more vocally now than you were able to do with Lost Goat because of maybe the style of the music. I mean, I think to me, you're really able to sort of display more of your attitude, your power with the style of music that, you know, you guys play. What's been, I guess, the biggest difference, in your opinion, in terms of your approach when it comes to your vocals with Sanhedrin and this type of, you know, music, this type of metal compared to what you did with Lost Goat and pretty much, I guess, all the other bands you've been involved with since?
I think I sing more in this band and scream less, probably.
Okay.
I think that just to make it,
Sure.
everything intentional for me in this band.
Mhm.
With Lost Goat, it was all very just gut. It was all
Okay.
just whatever my gut was telling me to do, I would do, vocally,
Mhm.
musically, whatever. With this band, it's much like I think it more. But I think that comes with just having a bunch of experience, really.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
I've been in tons of bands between Lost Goat and Sanhedrin. So,
Mhm.
I've been able to play around with what I like to do vocally.
Sure. Do you feel like you found your voice, the way you've wanted, maybe say to always have kind of sounded like with Sanhedrin right now? Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good way of looking at it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, I mean, you currently play, guitar in Black Anvil. You guys' last record, As Was, I think was the best one you've done. And I know, I mean, I know the most popular track is May Her Wrath Be Just, which is great, but the title track I think is killer too. I guess first off, so what's going on with that band now? Are you guys writing or recording anything? Is there anything on the horizon?
Well, we just signed to Season of Mist.
Okay.
Great.
Fulfilled our duties with Relapse and just decided to try another route. So we're pretty psyched to see what that brings. We basically have the next record written. We're just kind of waiting. I mean, me and Travis, the other guitar player, are living on the West Coast right now, which that complicated things. And then this darn pandemic complicated it further. So
sure.
Sometime next year, probably middle, be first or second quarter of next year, we'll be in the studio making the next record. And when that comes out, we'll be at the mercy of the circumstance of the world, I suppose.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like this is like same thing with Sanhedrin? Is this more you as a musician in terms of the type of music you write and play naturally compared to what you do with Black Anvil, which is obviously definitely a bit more extreme in terms of, the style and tempo of the music?
Yeah, I mean, both are certainly a reflection of, what I'm into. But the difference with Black Anvil and this band is that I co-founded Sanhedrin with these. Was Black Anvil already had 2 records out when I joined the band, and I was a fan of the band. And so when I was asked to start participating in it, I gladly did so. But with there was already a template, and I'm kind of putting my personality onto that template. Whereas this, we kind of started from scratch, so we could just really dig deep into what we wanted to get out of it. But a lot of it is also the collaborative effort with the musicians you play with. So
true.
The way Erica plays bass and the way Nate plays drums is very informative to what I bring with my guitar playing. So
okay,
that's a big part of it as well.
Awesome.
I'm going to throw this one out to both of you, just because I know you both have had, bands in the past, and you obviously still have Black Anvil now. Is Sanhedrin your more musical project? Is this the place where you feel you can stretch out more musically than other bands, other projects that you've done previously?
Who's first? I'll go first. I would say that, as a guitar player, I like a lot more things. I'm interested in a lot more things than just playing heavy metal.
Okay.
And so when I'm playing by myself, I like to explore other styles. And then I feel like in Sanhedrin, I can incorporate a lot more of that maybe than I can in Black Anvil, although I do sneak in a little Skinnerd into Black Anvil when I get a chance too. But I think with this, again, it's a different journey, and I'm personally constantly obsessing and curious as to what's next for Sanhedrin musically. Forget about the tours and the records and all that. It's like, what's going to happen the next time we get into a room with the ideas we've been emailing each other and stuff like that. So,
Sure.
And yeah, there's a lot more sonic ground I'm probably able to cover as a guitar player in this band than in Black Anvil, because Black Anvil's dynamic in their own way, but it's certainly, you know, again, it's a certain type of template. You know, black metal is black metal, and Sanhedrin has probably a bit broader scope. We're based in hard rock and heavy metal, but we can kind of do whatever we want while not betraying, you know, what we are as a band, I think.
Sure.
Yeah, here. I think. Wait, what was the question again? Can you re-ask the question?
What the question was, do you feel like Sanhedrin is a more open place for you to explore different musical ideas or musicality than
Yes.
previous stuff that you've worked on?
Well, I don't think I don't more stuff I've worked on, but I think what's cool about where we're at right now is we've reached a place, the three of us, where nothing's off the table.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. There's no idea that's like too insane to at least try, even if on paper it sounds crazy. Every once in a while, one of those ideas is actually magical, and like
Absolutely
a song, you know.
And you know, like I'm from an era where the subgenres exist, you know. So sometimes people say you sound like blah blah blah. I don't know what you're talking about. Like I don't know, you know, some of that stuff. So I feel a little bit kind of freed up by that also, because, you know, like have any preconceived notions about what a heavy metal band should be.
Sure.
Right. We just have you know, between the three of us, we have pretty diverse tastes as individuals from each other. And then there's a lot of commonalities that we have that have nothing to do with heavy metal, where, you know, one of us may shoot a reference to the other two about, let's make it more, you know, like funkadelic Eddie Hazel right here. And then, you know, which.
And
maybe,
we all understand that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Sure. Now, obviously, in today's world, and even pre-pandemic world, it's been a crazy, weird place to make music as a profession. It's just incredibly difficult these days. And I'm curious now, you know, you guys obviously, you sign with Metal Blade. That's exciting. I got to imagine in some ways it's also scary that, you know, the big fear of getting lost in the crush of the 900 bands that they have on Metal Blade. You know, there's always going to be that fear. So for you guys, what do you look for with Sanhedrin to consider this next record going forward as a success? Is it sales? Is it the ability to get out there and play shows, you know, to travel? Is it to just getting people to react to your music? What will it be that a year from now, once the record's been out and you've been able to do what you're able to do, where you'll be able to come back and say, yep, that was a success, or nope, didn't work here, got to do something different?
Well, I think by the time we get the final mastered copy of the record in our hands, we've already had a success, at least among the three of us, you know?
Okay.
And
I feel like the writing process.
Yeah. And then, like, do we really, like, we're lucky that our first two albums, I'm quite satisfied with them to this day in terms of how they turned out with what they were. So I think in terms of bringing in a larger label into the fold and what that may do for us, I think it'll allow us to share that success with more people. Maybe it also gives us some I don't know, credibility or whatever with certain festivals we haven't been able to get a foot in the door with, or maybe pitching us to certain tours that we didn't have an opportunity to be pitched for before. Like, we've been ready to do the work, and we've proven that. We put our first record out ourselves, not knowing what was going to happen. So I think we're just trying to, take what we're doing, which we are very proud of, and just try to see if we can get more people to experience it with us. Because the people that have shown themselves to be our fans to this point have been super loyal and super just, encouraging to us. And really, I just want to broaden that to a larger scope if we can.
Well, I can tell you for a fact one of those people is sitting right in the top right of your screen, because I've been hearing about your band from Matt for I think about 8 months. He's been telling me, you got to hear this band. You got to hear this band. So it does seem like you guys have that. When it seems like you guys are one of those rare breeds that it just takes somebody to get in front of, for you to get in front of, to get them to want people to hear you. So, hopefully that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, to us, that seems like the next logical step, is to just kind of, we know what we are, we know what we aren't, and just get, I think people, they don't like you if they don't know you exist.
Well, absolutely. And also, I think we know how to work. Like, we have all worked in the music industry in different ways. So with the infrastructure of a label like Metal Blade, we can do more of that work, I think.
Right. We're not going to stop working hard because we're on a bigger label. It just, we're hopeful that it just opens some new doors for us so that we can continue that push, but just, maybe scale up a little bit. The thing about art is you can't make people like it. So, but if we can get it to enough, to more people,
exactly.
That's really that's the mission. We're just trying to take what we do and share it with as many people as that may be interested in hearing it.
Totally. Awesome. Yeah. Well, I have to, since I got you guys on here, I got to ask you, a couple of New York questions here. Obviously, you guys are from Brooklyn, and, Brooklyn, obviously, anyone who grew up there in New York knows it's definitely the capital of metal in New York City. It's been for decades. I mean, obviously all the, L'Amour's back in the day. I mean, obviously now you got St. Vitus there. I mean, a lot of bands, just when I used to go see shows back there, I mean, like I said, L'Amour's, just so many different places in Brooklyn. It's just been really the home of metal for New York City. And like when I was growing up there, I mean, the thing is a lot of metal was not really welcomed in Manhattan. So the bands had to go to the outer boroughs, had to go to, New Jersey or go upstate or Long Island or wherever, and had to play because those clubs just didn't want it. It was mostly punk that was in Manhattan and not really metal. How are things today in New York City in terms of how metal is embraced? Is it still pretty, extremely difficult to sort of penetrate those clubs in Manhattan and to get gigs as a metal band?
I think something's happening right now with metal and fashion, honestly, because I teach high school, and a lot of my high school students are coming in with Judas Priest and Iron Maiden shirts, not even knowing the music. So I think that heavy metal is is enjoying a thing that kind of happened to punk in the 90s, where maybe the larger culture is starting to embrace it, at least on some level, as a fashion thing. Does that make sense?
Well, is it? Are you sure it's not that, or it's not because the Kardashians are wearing all those metal shirts? And
I mean,
picking up.
I think that's the same side of the. That's a different side of the same coin.
Okay.
Right, but it could be the thing where that kid is buying a Judas Priest shirt, not knowing what it is and knowing it looks cool, like we used to, we would buy records because the album cover was cool.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
cool
and then
scary guy on the
one out of however many of those kids is going to get into it, and you guys know as well as we do that once you get into it, you don't get out of it. So.
Very true.
Yes,
Good
and
point.
it's my job as a high school teacher to make sure these kids get into it. So
Right.
Good, very good. I like hearing that.
In terms of Brooklyn as a whole, I mean, we see ourselves. We are from Brooklyn, but we want to be more known as a act that transcends our local scene as much as we love it. We're a touring band, we make records and we go on tour. That's our home base. But I will just say thank whatever guiding spirits there are for St. Vitus Bar.
Yeah.
Because if not for that place and those fellas that run that show, that I can't think of what we would do without them right now. So, and unfortunately, they seem to be weathering the storm right now. Hopefully they can be open when this is all over. But yeah, as far as playing in Manhattan, the only times I've played there in recent years has just been, cool support slots for bands coming in tour and playing those bigger rooms that are in Manhattan. But in terms of playing the clubs, it's still kind of the same. They don't want heavy metal there so much.
Not so much.
Okay.
No,
We don't want them here.
no.
Sure.
And I'll tell you, like New York had a great scene when I was coming up. It was mostly hardcore and some crossover, but not really. But it was mostly hardcore. And and that was what was going on mainly at CB's and in Manhattan. But then you had bands like Leeway, and
Cro-Mags.
they would play Lemore's, Cro-Mags. Yeah, so there was definitely a crossover. And when I came back to New York in 2003, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, what's happening in New York? You know what I mean? Like, where's the scene? And it took a few years I don't know if St. Vitus was open then. But finally, when I finally found that place, I was like, oh, okay, that's where the scene is. All right.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what I imagined.
Well, yeah. I mean, I used to live in Greenpoint, and I remember there was nothing there. I was living there in the mid-'90s, and there was, nothing there. So it's funny going there now and just seeing all those neighborhoods in Brooklyn that have just completely changed. It's yeah.
And if you go to St. Vitus, it's still a hike. Like you get off the G train and you still got to walk like 15 minutes to,
just yeah.
Not in the middle of town, that's for sure.
Sure. No.
But people still flock to it because it's probably like Lemore's was, where it's in, what was it, like Sheepshead Bay or something?
Sheepshead, yeah.
Yeah, so like that's not out of the way if you're in Jersey, I guess, but if you're in northern Brooklyn or Queens, parts of Queens, it was a thing to get there,
Yeah.
But the community exceeds that stuff,
Sure. No, absolutely. So, I guess, obviously we got the pandemic and we don't know when live, music's returning. So, what's next for you guys? When are you expecting to release something on Metal Blade? Is that sort of, you waiting until, or is the label waiting until live music goes back before they put out your record, or what's,
they've been pretty optimistic. So we've booked studio time for, late spring.
Okay.
And they're talking about perhaps a late 2021 release, depending on the state of affairs. We're just kind of the thought that we'll make the record because it's just about ready to make.
Okay.
And then, if it makes more sense to push the release to when we could do some touring, because releasing a record around a tour and vice versa, they feed each other. That would be the preferred way, but there's just who knows what at all these days.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
We're gonna make a lot of videos.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be cool. Are you gonna make? Well, I just saw you did just put out a new video, right? Like in October, I believe. Are you gonna go to just take songs from the Poison and make videos from there, or even from the first record?
We are working currently on a video for Funeral for the World.
You are? Oh, very awesome. Love that song. Yeah.
Because
The
it's like
video thing
the
is
most appropriate time for that.
Sure. That's a good point. Good point. Yeah.
Well, we did the first video because we were just like, we want to stay connected, you know, like we can't get out there and, you know, you can talk to any of our fans who've come to see us. When the show's over, we hang out, you know, we want to talk to them and connect with them. It's important to the band.
Sure.
And I think it's a big reason for our, you know, success to date. And so this was just kind of a way to get around the current bullshit. And so we're going to make another video, which is going to be a kind of a different concept from a different record that's been out for a couple of years, but we, you know, there are no rules.
Yeah,
No.
it's, you know, we're just working with the content we have. We're trying to generate stuff that keeps people interested until we can get out there and play live again.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Totally. Absolutely. Well, I mean, once again, thank you guys so much for coming on. Why don't you go ahead and just give the listeners, let them know where they can, you know, find your music and merch and all that good stuff that they can check out.
Well, we have a website, which is sanhedrin.nyc. And on that website, you can find links to everything. You know, the YouTube channel, the Spotify, you know, links if that's your thing. If you're into Bandcamp, which we strongly encourage, Bandcamp is the most important platform that this band has, and many others. Shout out to them. So www.sanhedrin.nyc is just the place to kind of find out everything about us.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Jeremy, Erica, thank you guys so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to hear that new record and the new videos you're putting out. And when you get that record out, we'll definitely have to have you guys back on to talk more about it.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.
All right, everybody, another great interview right here on Aftershocks TV. And before we go, just want to remind you one more time, make sure you get over and subscribe to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe to everything that we do, not only us, but the classic metal shows, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me. It's all there, one site, get 4 great shows, never have to do anything again but be entertained. So check it out, cmspn.com, cmspn.com, cmspn.com. Until next time, folks.